Welcome, Jhonny Chang.
How you doing?
All right, all right. I'm Cavario, aka the Mind Plug,
For sure.
and yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, man. On Vlad TV, I watched pretty much every interview that there is so far on you, and we're about to surpass all of them. They're
Yeah.
good. This was gonna be great.
Yeah. For sure.
So I understand you were born in East LA, California in 1989.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. You were born to Korean-born parents,
Yeah.
and you had a troublesome household. I want you to elaborate on that. So I won't break any of that down. I'll leave that up to you. All right. So you were born in LA, though your parents were born in Korea.
Right. Right.
And although your parents are born in Korea, you're Chinese.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Um, um, I'm very interested in how that works. And so regardless of where you are in the world, or where you're from in the world, you have a family, and then if you have a family, not everybody has a family, but if you have a family, then they are your foundation. Meaning, whatever choices you're inclined to make as you grow older, they will be founded in the ideas and examples given to you.
Right.
That said, what was your family dynamic like?
So my it was very traditional Chinese. My parents were born in Korea, but originally ethnically were Chinese, right? So my grandparents from both sides, they fled the communism in China. And they, you know, Korea. So where we're from is a northern region of China, and they fled over to Korea, which is like a boat ride over, basically. So yeah, the dynamic of my family was again very traditional Chinese. Father was a dictator, mother was kind of very submissive, and my dad didn't believe in like Buddhism or anything. My mom was Buddhist though, so again, she believed in karma, she believed in serving, she believed in being putting good energy out there and receiving good energy back. So she kind of just stuck through everything, with my dad. My father was abusive. Like a dictator almost, and very he was an alcoholic. Yeah. Mhm.
Um, being born, raised by alcoholics, um, has a particular type of impact on young people. Profound impact usually. They usually either develop um, alcoholism themselves, or they forego the alcohol and just take on the behaviors. Did you struggle with any of that? Did you struggle with drinking, or if not, did you struggle with the behavior that you learned from your father?
I would say I struggled with the behavior. I really didn't like the alcohol, the taste of alcohol, all of that, and just I remember the smell of it, and even like the smell of throw up. Like I would remember
Oh,
that. So that kind of deterred me from really drinking. Like I drank when I was with the homies as I got older, but I was never really, I would say, an alcoholic. But yeah, the trauma that came from the abuse stemming from the alcoholism, definitely. Like I had a hair trigger, like hairpin anger. I'd go from zero to
yeah.
100. I kind of cultivated that mindset of like just like handling things through violence, rather than speaking. I didn't really like to talk much actually, prior to growing a little older. When I was younger, I was just like always fighting, didn't know how to express myself, angry all the time, empty all the time, frustrated all the time. So yeah.
When you say empty all the time, what do you mean by that?
I always felt like I was inadequate. I remember feeling this like at the age of 11. I just didn't really, I felt like I was a failure before my life even started, if that's like the best way to put it. I couldn't, I don't know, I just felt like I couldn't function correctly. Like I was always the odd one out. And I felt like no matter what I did, like I wasn't really happy. Like most kids at 11, 12 years old, they're worried about, I don't know, Pokemon and Pogs and stuff like that. I wasn't worried. None of that made me happy. I couldn't really have fun, and it wasn't until I found my street, my neighborhood, my gang, that I started to feel a little more like that adrenaline rush, and I felt more alive in that aspect when I was doing those like criminal activities.
Hmm. Yeah, I can dig it.
Mm.
Um, the inadequacy. I mean, at 11 years old, inadequacy is a pretty sophisticated type of emotion to experience.
Mm.
Um, when you said you felt inadequate, um, I mean, you grew up, as I understand, you grew up poor in the projects,
Mhm.
all right?
Mhm.
So you didn't have much, but most of the people in your environment didn't have much either, all
Right.
right?
Right.
So when you said you felt inadequate, what is it that you felt that you were insufficient for? What did you feel that you didn't have, weren't enough for?
I just felt like this, like, well, first off, like a lot of the parents around, like a lot of my friends, I grew up with a lot of Hispanics, right? So a lot of their parents were kind of pretty like loving. Like the mom was very loving towards the kids. The father was kind of similar to my father, but I felt like my mom and my dad both just weren't in my life, even though they were there. I didn't feel like they
Uh-huh.
were actually there. You know what I mean? And I couldn't open up to them about anything. Like, there's a time where I got jumped, and I wasn't able to really like open up to my dad about that. I tried to, told him that, they stole my backpack, they stole my shoes, I got beat up. And because of the cultural difference, like he couldn't understand why little kids would be doing this to little kids, basically, because he's from Korea.
Yeah.
There's like bullying, but it wasn't nothing crazy like that, and he didn't understand the gang culture, the dynamic of gangs. He understood that there was gangs, but he didn't know how they operated. He just basically didn't understand that. And so I always felt like nobody understood me, even though I was around these types of people. Like we were different culturally because I was Chinese and they were, Hispanic. And then it was just like, I think it was just a mixture of all of those things. I just remember feeling like this pressure in my chest, like not being happy at all and seeing other people and getting envious too. Like I was jealous all the time of seeing other kids have stuff, even if it was like, I don't know, I would get Payless shoes and some of the kids would get, I don't know, Nikes, and I would get mad about that. And I was like, that's not normal. And I remember people calling me out on that too. Like, yo, why are you
Really?
so mad? Like it's not a big deal. But I just couldn't take it.
So
Yeah.
that's how inadequacy it manifests.
Right.
That's what haters is about.
Yeah.
Haters is about
Right.
they don't feel like they're sufficient for the world. Period. It's a heavy feeling for an adolescent to experience, a prepubescent adolescent to that. Like it's really some heavy shit.
Yeah.
So psychologically and emotionally, you started out early dealing with some issues that it doesn't seem you had any um, outlet for. You couldn't talk to the people closest to you. You had a mother and a father. I understand that you also had a brother,
Mhm.
older brother.
Yeah.
What was the dynamic like between you and he?
We didn't like each other. So my brother was actually a good kid. He tried to listen to my parents. He wouldn't run away when he would get beat and stuff like that. He was actually a real like loving kind of kid. And how he changed was he started getting bullied like after around like high school. Like freshman year of high school. So that's when he kind of changed. But me and him, I always felt like I couldn't relate to him. Like we just hated each other so much. And I was a kid who would always be getting in trouble. Like even at the age of 5, 6 years old, I was like a straight kleptomaniac. I would steal all the time. And my brother would be the one be like, "Why are you doing this?" Like I felt like that judgment towards him, even as a young age. I didn't know that was judge. I just didn't like him telling me what to do. So I naturally had an issue with authority as a kid. And he wasn't. He was very submissive as a kid. He was the firstborn, which is he's the older brother. So he actually got a lot of attention, and I was taught that no matter what, I have to respect him, even though he's only 18, 19 months older than me. I can't
Mhm.
call him by his first name. I got to call him by like big bro. In Mandarin, it's like daga, which means big brother. If I call him by his name, I could get beat for that. I mean, and then on top of that, when I would fight with him, he could say whatever he wants because he's older, more mature. But if I say something back to him, I'm gonna get in trouble for that. So I always had that kind of jealousy towards him too. Like, man, you could do whatever you want, and I got to sit here and try to be a good person, and just like be a submissive person and listen to you. And I just didn't. I went against all of that, and I got disciplined a lot by my parents because of that.
That definitely would contribute to inadequacy issues even further, man. I mean, being told that you're basically lesser than because you're younger than is
Right.
kind of ridiculous. You know, that is something that I'm sure you've assimilated enough with, with cultures outside of your ethnic culture to know that that's not a common dynamic. Like, all that he's the older brother and all of whatever. I mean, there's a certain regard that you have to have, but not being able to call them by their name and, having to just take whatever they throw at you and there be no kind of checks and balances.
Right.
That's something that's very much particular to, I guess maybe Asian culture in general, maybe
Absolutely.
Chinese culture in particular.
Absolutely.
But it's like, that's a lot to manage, man.